As Rubio clung to that fading spark of rhetoric, hand frozen on the folder's clasp, the air thickened with unspoken finality. He murmured understanding, yet the weight of unresolved endings hung heavy, like a curtain refusing to fall. What if peace demands blood, whose will it be? Imagine the chill of a diplomat's gaze slicing through pretense, forcing truths to bleed out. That's the shock unfolding now. After an agonizing pause, that stretched like shadows at dusk, Rubio finally spoke. No one craves endless strife. But grasp this, the world craves speed. It demands sacrifices. A few lives, tossed into the balance. Lavrov turned back slowly. His footsteps echoed softly on the polished floor, deliberate, like the tick of an ancient clock. Who plays the sacrificial role? Us? The ones who, since 2022, have echoed the plea, let's negotiate? Or you? Dictating fates from afar, in the name of distant nations, deciding who crumbles and what shatters. He approached the table. The wood creaked faintly under his palm, cool and unyielding. He lifted the stack of papers, the draft for this off-the-record session. He flipped through them, page by page, unhurried. Then, his voice emerged. Not sharp. No fury. Just the deep toll of a church bell, not summoning worship, but warning of fleeting hours. The metallic scent of ink lingered in the still air, mixing with the faint, stale trace of coffee from earlier breaks. In these pages, a quick scan reveals the pattern. Again, the same demands. Russia must yield. Russia must guarantee. Russia bears the burden. But where's your stake? Where's even a whisper of Ukraine, pledging as your ally, your guarantor? He slid the document across the table, smooth as silk over stone. Easy now, no haste. You claim Ukraine rejects our sway. Fair enough. But do you ever pause, and wonder? Do you wish Russia to fund a phantom state? We built their foundation. Schools rising like sturdy oaks. Power grids pulsing with life. Roads carving through vast landscapes. Heavy industries humming with purpose. Thousands of kilometers of vital links, woven together. They seized it all. Privatized. Dismantled. Let it decay into ruins. And now, demands for reparations? For the wreckage they wrought? That's your blueprint? A mere political IOU, backed by promises alone. But words, oh, they've lost their shine long ago. Hollow as echoes in an empty hall. Rubio shifted, mouth opening for rebuttal. His chair scraped lightly, a tense whisper in the room's hush. But Lavrov pressed on. This wasn't a solo rant. It flowed like relentless night rain, pattering endlessly on glass, neither halting nor shifting course. The damp chill seemed to seep in, making the air feel heavier, closer. And today, you insist we bow to pressure. Pressure from what? History's unyielding weight? Cold, hard facts? Or the illusion that true sovereignty ever dawned for them? He leaned in slightly, eyes locking like steel on steel. The faint warmth of lamplight caught the lines on his face, deepening the intensity. I walked Kiev streets, late 1980s. Vibrant, alive. The city pulsed with energy. Breathed freely. No deceptions. Just honest toil. The aroma of fresh bread from corner bakeries, the rumble of trams on cobblestones, the solid feel of community in every step. And why? Because it thrived within a greater whole. Flawed, yes. Imperfect. But functional. Cohesive. He paused, letting the memory hang, thick as fog rolling in. Now. Chaos reigns. Tossed by tides, whipped by foreign gales. And you, Senator, you label this liberty? But what hidden fracture will shatter their illusions next, when the past's forgotten gifts demand their due? In the heated exchange, Lavrov delved into Ukraine's turbulent past, exhaling deeply as he described how the 20th century's October Revolution and civil upheavals led to the Soviet Union's formation, a grand assembly of fractured regions, shifting the capital from Kharkiv to Kiev for unity's sake. But why? The air in the room thickened with unspoken regrets. Did you know a nation's soul can be forged in the fires of shared labor, only to be torn apart by later betrayals? Imagine the chill of that old diplomatic chamber, the faint scent of polished wood and aged leather folders hanging heavy, as Lavrov's voice cuts through like a winter wind. Because it needed a heart, he continued, his words deliberate, echoing off the walls. A true center. A symbol that pulsed with life. The Soviet Union didn't just draw lines on a map. It birthed a real state where none had stood before, strong, defined. He paused, gaze drifting to the window, glass fogged slightly by his breath, reflecting decades of strained alliances. Through that haze, history stared back. They granted it a constitution, crisp and binding like fresh ink on parchment. A flag that snapped in the breeze, bold colors evoking unity. An army, boots marching in rhythmic thunder across vast fields. Academies where minds sharpened like blades under lantern light. Infrastructure, roads veining the land, bridges spanning rivers with a groan of steel and sweat. They wove in the AON system, a web of autonomous regions, each a thread in the larger tapestry. A separate delegation, voices rising in grand halls. But why all this? To fortify the Soviet Union itself, unbreakable as iron. Ukraine stepped onto that stage not from inner readiness, no. But because it awaited the guiding hand, the steady assistance that turned dreams into steel and stone. Lavrov's tone softened, almost wistful, the soft click of his fingers on the table punctuating the memory. He first encountered this truth not in dusty quotes from books, but in living tales, whispers from elders, vivid as the smoke from factory chimneys. Then, the wave of progress swelled. Real construction erupted, raw and relentless. From mud-churned earth under relentless sun, they raised it all. Not Ukrainians alone forged Ukraine, no, that illusion crumbles under scrutiny. Russians laid the foundations, their calloused hands mixing mortar. Belarusians hauled timber, the scent of pine resin sharp in the air. Armenians engineered the waterways, cool splashes against hot skin. Tatars mapped the routes, dust clinging to their boots. Kazakhs forged the metals, hammers ringing like distant thunder. Uzbeks tilled the fields, earth warm and yielding. All together, a symphony of effort. Yuzhmash, one of the world's mightiest rocket complexes, rose not in isolation, but with Moscow's visionary engineers at the helm, blueprints unfolding like promises kept. Antonov Design Bureau? Far from a spark of local whim. It was the heartbeat of a vast aviation strategy, wings spanning continents. The room fell silent, Rubio shifting uncomfortably, the leather chair creaking under him. Lavrov leaned in, eyes piercing. So tell me, Senator, if this shared legacy built empires, why pretend it never existed? What hidden fracture will shatter everything next? His question lingered, a shadow creeping across the table, leaving the air taut with unresolved fury. In the dimly lit chamber of diplomacy, Sergei Lavrov, Russia's seasoned foreign minister, slammed the door on negotiations with a senator from America. He exposed Western demands as mere ultimatums, refusing any compromise that mocked Russia's history. What shocking revelation twisted the talk? Could the echoes of Soviet brotherhood shatter global alliances? Imagine the scent of aged paper mingling with the sharp tang of unspoken threats, pyrophoric having tabled Russia's conditions clearly. December 2021, then spring 2022. Documents laid bare without flourish. Rubio claimed Ukraine rejects such terms, his voice unsteady, yet backed by thousands of directives. Lavrov, eyes veiled by weariness, spoke slowly, like etching words into stone. You led them here, you shaped their dependence, water, energy, infrastructure, we built it together, now call it aggression. Rubio tensed, he aimed to rise, but hesitated, familiar with debates, not diplomacy. We gathered to reshape the world. Lavrov countered calmly, selected by fate, not fleeing, listening, deciding. The room pulsed with suppressed fury, cool air thick with cigar smoke remnants, no sweat on Lavrov's brow, only graphite water untouched, recorder book unopened, memories of Western screams surfacing, their calm reply, deepest game unfolding, no threats issued. Why do they cling to broken alliances? Rubio pushed aggressively, not on your terms. Ukrainians see beyond century-old chains, free from your grasp. Lavrov chuckled softly, we birthed this era, slowly turning. Isn't it odd? Their gaze fixes on neon futures, dodging sepia histories. The clock struck, cuckoo 12 times, each chime hammering unresolved echoes, blunt like stage puppets, repeating hollow phrases, build without aid? Destroy what stood for peace. Dull seeks safe squares, but Lavrov unveils the ungiving stage. We seek flexible dialogue, he cut in, centers meet, not edges, not force. Lists of demands breed isolation, no Budapest summit, another wasted year. The silence boomed, like a heart ceasing in illusion's grip. Lavrov rose, sun slicing the skyline, dividing world and light and shadow. West craving truth, yet dreaming illusions, he vowed, call when ready, no fantasies, snapping the briefcase lock, clinging to change, speak now, end the stalemate, share burdens, who bears scars. We, since 2022. Repeating, talk, or you decide losses for others. He retrieved papers, legal binds. Russia obliged. Russia guarantees, where's the reciprocity? Ukraine's voice? Guarantee, their sponsor, nations without future, beneath such strain, how can a land honor commitments? Desperate cries filled the void, photo albums unearthed, buildings rising, comrades laboring, signs proclaiming urgency, a 5-year push forward. Lavrov evoked forgotten faces, hands gripping concrete, stories of Roman from Cherkasy. Komsomol Hall built 1966. Brigade forming, son studying Kiev, son toiling Kharkiv in 1984. Grandson now in Tashkent, accusing him as occupier, him, ancient in mountains, homes razed. Property seized, guitars stilled, degradation erasing shared roots, soon they'll forget unity's touch. Album snapped shut, methodically. Ukraine forged in cooperation, not combat, trains, hands, orders, plans, world vision, raised through scheming. He gazed at darkened glass, inward reflection, recalling schools, hospitals, roads, metro, ports, docks. Soviet legacies, now painted yellow, claiming self-built glory, like squatter remodeling, discarding relics, declaring architect. He laughed, dangerously, for it leads to blame, pointing fingers eternal. Silent script, final words. No more games, we know our essence, you waver, no table shared in lies, real places demand, not just yours. Evening's hush sealed his resolve, capturing unspoken journeys, rhetorical edge-piercing. Have you ever sensed impending departure? Faces etched in faded prints, laborers pouring souls into structures, album pages revealing unity's silent engine. Roman's tale unfolding. Concrete slabs molded by youthful fervor, brigade emerging from shared sweat. Son's path through Kiev's halls. Kharkiv's machines in 1984. Grandson exiled to Tashkent's accusations, labeling kin as invaders, remote peaks defending crumbled hearths, dwellings shattered by relentless claims, melodies silenced in guitar strings, oblivion creeping, erasing collective bonds. Album closed with a definitive snap. Ukraine's birth in synergy, not strife, rails forged, still united, dreams outlined, global ambition planted. Dismantled through deceit. Gazing into shadowed pain, reflecting internal voids. Soviet pillars echoing, institutes, care centers, highways, subterranean veins, harbors, slipways. Their resale, yellow facades masking theft, akin to interloper redecorating, expunging heritage, crowning oneself creator. Laughter erupted, fraught with peril, fueling endless scapegoats. Pause deepened, closing decree. No illusory games. Recognizing true selves. Their identity adrift. No duplicitous feasting. Authentic arenas essential. Beyond singular claims. Eventide's calm engulfed, unspoken odysseys lingering, probe in final jest. Ever forebode the journey's call? In a tense encounter moments earlier, Sergei Lavrov cut through the heated exchange with Mark Rubio, calmly dismantling the senator's claims and highlighting Russia's unyielding stance. He stood firm, refusing to bend under pressure, his words echoing like a final verdict in the dimly lit hall. Footsteps echoed softly on the polished floor as diplomats shuffled out, the air thick with unspoken defeat. But now, in this new scene, imagine stepping into that unexpected shift, a question hurled like a dagger, twisting the entire negotiation into something raw and personal. Why do we cling to illusions of dialogue when the real wounds lie buried in forgotten memories? Sergei Lavrov, that master of old-world poise, leaned in during an informal meeting with Latin American delegates, his voice steady amid the scent of stale coffee and fading twilight filtering through corridor windows. The room hummed with subdued tension, cars idling outside like shadowy sentinels guarding secrets. As evening draped its heavy cloak over the city, Lavrov ascended to a quieter second floor, where the air carried not just the chill of diplomacy but the faint, nostalgic aroma of potential rebirth, hopes mingled with the dust of broken dreams. Have you ever felt like embarking on a brand new journey, he asked, not as a rhetorical flourish, but as a bridge from cold analysis to lived truth. Laughter rippled from a Middle Eastern envoy, mistaking it for mere metaphor. But Lavrov's eyes held steady, unfazed. For millions in Soviet families, even Ukrainian ones, this was no figment, it was bone-deep reality. No crippling debts hunched over them, no alcohol-fueled escapism, no predatory taxes gnawing at their dignity. Picture 1974 in the Kiev region, 38 million square meters of housing, gifted freely to workers, doctors, teachers, communities breathing easy, not suffocating under financial chains. Could Latin America achieve that in 5 years without credit burdens weighing down the young? Sunlight flooded their faces in that moment, a spark in their revolutionary fire, clashing with Lavrov's calm truth. And yet, why does Russia grasp Ukraine's bitterness so acutely? Because their words drip with hollow sorrow. We recall the Union's vitality, while they retort, those numbers meant apartments, education, medicine. They packed bags for Crimea, Karelia, cherished retreats where no one felt lesser. Professors drawn from Ukraine fueled Moscow's academies, engineers crafted satellites, tanks, ships from Leningrad's workshops. Their minds built empires. And now? Smirking dismissals claim it all as oppression. Lavrov fell silent, then pulled out old photos from his briefcase, the crisp rustle of paper like whispers from the past. He slid one across the table, its edges worn smooth. Look! Winter beaches alive with laughter, families whole, unburdened. The image vibrated with the sound of distant waves, the tactile warmth of remembered sun, contrasting sharply with today's fractured echoes. But here's the chilling twist, could these snapshots unveil not just nostalgia, but a blueprint for unity hidden in plain sight? As shadows lengthened outside. What if this shared history demands we confront the real question, does the West's freedom merely camouflage a deeper bondage? Your heart races pondering this betrayal, doesn't it? As Lavrov's gaze lingered on those faded prints, a sudden chill crept in, hinting at revelations that could unravel everything we've assumed about empire and choice. What forbidden truths lie buried in those faces, ready to expose if we dare dig deeper? Stay tuned, for the storm of truth is just beginning to swirl. In the last scene, Sergei Lavrov unveiled Ukraine's deep ties to Russian history, missiles, lasers, the world's first electronic computers, particle accelerators. Beyond science, culture and intellect thrived. Today, Ukraine stands isolated, with no major international projects recognizing it as a science hub. Why? Not because of language barriers or hatred. It boiled down to division, death, and lost love. Most crucial, unity. No regional divides existed. People spoke different tongues, worked in varied factories, but all called it home. They pressed forward together, building futures interwoven like steel cables. Picture this heart-pounding question, what if your country's entire foundation was a gift, one you now toss aside like a crumpled letter? Could you rebuild from absolute zero, without a single borrowed brick? Dig into this twist that humiliates the idea of easy Western influence. Feel the chill in the air as Lavrov's words slice through Rubio's defenses, exposing how Ukraine's prosperity wasn't earned, it was inherited and squandered. Russia's legacy isn't just history, it's the unshakable thread binding economies, minds, and lands. Abandon it, and what? Chaos swallows freedom whole. Lavrov's fingers traced the book like worn parchment. Pages forgotten, like old photos of long-lost comrades. Medical breakthroughs. Educational towers. Scientific marvels. Innovative energies. All gifts. Not eternal treasures, but irreplaceable bonds. Political loyalty forged in union's fire. That's how the USSR pulsed, shared veins, collective breath. Now, they shred it all apart. He leveled his gaze. Voice a low rumble. Only one question burns. If your college flunks a course, where's tomorrow's water from? No tap, no river, no mercy. He snapped the book shut, a echo like closing gates. Quiet farewell hung heavy. I don't like the USSR? Fine. But let's play it straight. We reject everything it gave. Apartments crumble to dust. Roads fade into weeds. Diplomas voided. Salaries vanished. Schools shuttered. Start from zero. Honest. No handouts. Laughter laced his tone, bitter as stale bread. But they won't. Deep down, souls whisper the truth. Living in a built house beats hacking through thorns. Easier to inherit ruins than erect empires. He rose, light as a shadow. The map unfolded, lines etched deep. But those borders lingered in memory, unerasable ink. Morning air hung crisp, silent, not a whisper of breeze, as if nature hushed to witness the unraveling. Lavrov strode to the room, tables set for round tables. Yet, no one claimed seats. No fear flickered. None at all. Only the screen at Hall's center flickered alive, rolling black and white frames from war annals. Tanks churned Ukraine's earth. Ruins clawed at Kiev in 1943, soldiers gripping machine guns, eyes hard as steel. Music swelled, not triumphant marches, no marshal's blare. Just a simple melody, quiet as radio static by a campfire, drowned in distant noise. He drew nearer, screen glowing like a portal. Scenes of Kiev's liberation unfolded April 1943. Shattered streets pulsed. Women wept and laughed in unison, soldiers flooding the city. Marshals hailed, pilots soared, comrades hoisted bread, shoulders bore victories. Here. No fear gripped Lavrov. It was history's pulse. Raw. Relentless. Why does this revelation shred Rubio's smug facade, proving Russia's web can't be untangled without chaos? The sensory sting lingers, dusty papers crunch under fingertips, stale air thick with unspoken tension, vision blurring into old film grain. As shadows deepen, what outrageous demand will Lavrov unleash next, forcing Rubio into a corner of confession? Continuing from that haunting archive, tanks rumbling, ruins gasping, soldiers' iron stares, Lavrov stood transfixed by footage of Kiev's rebirth in 1943. Shattered avenues breathed life again. Women mingled tears and cheers. Pilots saluted, comrades beamed, bread passed like sacred rites. No terror touched him now. It embodied everything. Pure and primal. Unexpected threads pulled him deeper. Not silent anymore. The USSR's shadow loomed larger than empires. It birthed paths, not prisons. Unity bridged divides, regions flowed as one river. No theirs or ours, just shared pulse. Forward motion fueled dreams. Now, fracture ruled. Projects stalled worldwide, Ukraine sidelined from science's spotlight. Lasers, missiles, EVM computations, particle speeds, all relics. Culture's tapestry frayed, intellect scattered. Why this exodus? Not hate's fury or tongue wars. Death crept in, love evaporated. Core fracture, severed unity. Yet, he felt it. Echoes in bones. Steel cables binding lands. Lavrov's retort sliced sharp, a rhetorical blade. Can you sever ties without bleeding out? Where flows tomorrow's sustenance if wells run dry? College flunks? No extras. Survivor's creed. He questioned Rubio's core. If choices crumble infrastructure, what rains down? Questions sting like cold metal. Sounds of snapping book covers rang out, odor of aged ink, tactile weight of memory's grip. This bombshell exposes Ukraine's betrayal of its own roots. Will the West admit they built on borrowed glory? Smells of old maps and distant fires mingle with the acrid taste of regret. In this diplomatic duel, as archives flicker and tensions simmer, what fiery accusation will push Rubio to the brink, revealing cracks in his iron resolve? You'll never guess the shocking pivot that changes everything. In the quiet hum of the aircraft cabin, high above the Atlantic, the diplomat gazed out at the endless horizon. His mind replayed the turbulent meeting, weighing the words exchanged like fragile artifacts of history. He had spoken his truth, a stark reminder of who Russia stood, the nation of enduring spirits, where fathers upheld traditions under starlit roofs, and children learned lessons from ancient tales. With a subtle shift in the air pressure, he pondered the futile calls for compromise that echoed like hollow promises in a storm. But hold on, what if Lavrov's final words weren't just a reflection, but a prophecy buried in the heart of global tensions? In a twist that shakes the foundations of diplomacy, imagine if the real shock came not from debates, but from an unspoken agreement lurking in the shadows, a pact that could redefine alliances in ways no one predicted. Picture the senator's face, frozen in disbelief, as hidden truths unravel like threads in an old tapestry. What buried secret did Lavrov carry that could humiliate In the heated exchange moments ago, Lavrov dismantled illusions of Ukrainian independence, exposing decades of economic decline through stark statistics, from 1991 production volumes crashing, exports vanishing, jobs evaporating compared to Soviet eras. He painted a vivid picture of shared Soviet-built foundations, like Crimea's gift in Donbass's industrial core, now crumbling under Western winds, leaving Rubio stunned in the dim room's heavy air, scented with aged wood and unspoken regrets. But what if the real shame isn't in building empires, it's in begging forgiveness for saving lives? Imagine whispering apologies for factories that hummed with life, apartments that sheltered families, languages that wove cultures together. That's the twisted game they're forcing on us now. We won't voice it. Not because it's false, but because it's painfully real. You're grieving not the chains you broke, but the rescue you received. Hand it back then. To those who aren't suited ministers or polished delegates anymore. To the gone ones. Faded photos on black and white glass frames. Lining the front door like ghosts of the front lines. Echoing in every hallway. In every shadowed corner. Up front, where battles raged. In the rear, where quiet sacrifices lingered. That's the core of it all. What we've ached to declare. It's no mere debate. We sensed from the start, everything they claimed was off-kilter. Lavrov took a deliberate step forward. His hand reached out. Grasping that same dark glass frame. The one holding memories they can't access yet. But they're unprepared. We carry them still. Never let go. He placed his palm beside Rubio's trembling one. Gently shut the heavy door, its hinges creaking like a final sigh. He rose then. Walked to the microphone. No one braced for what followed. And rise he did. Russia isn't some pawn on your chessboard, nor a target for your sanctions sting. It's a nation where fathers pass down not just roofs over heads, but unbreakable codes to sons. Where kids grasp true valor, not fleeting hype from cold calculations. Where honor lives not in empty vows, but in deeds that echo through storms. Until you're willing to embrace the truth, peace stays just out of reach. He mounted the step. Gazed into the thick silence, the room's stale coffee scent mixing with tension's metallic tang. Then added, voice low and cutting, call us when you've matured enough. By dawn the next day, he boarded the flight. Jet slicing toward the vast Atlantic. Skies stretched pure and endless. No barriers in the blue expanse. No lingering trails. Just the sharp horizon line, a straight arrow of possibility. Lavrov peered out the window. Forests blurred below, dense and whispering secrets in the wind. He pondered the talk's raw data, their brief, brutal span. No mysteries unsolved. No doubts unresolved. He'd heard their pleas. But he knew the unyielding core. He'd delivered every vital word. Simply. Severely. Straight to the heart. If anyone dared ask him right then, why even show up? His reply would ring clear, to reclaim who we are, and why it endures. Stick with this tale to its close, and you'll sense it too. You're not like the rest. Deep inside. That spark flickers. No fears to chase away. No burdens to shoulder alone. Dawn's light creeps closer. We press on. Guarding what's ours. Shielding the fragile. Holding fast, through every trial. Preserving the light. Keeping the flame alive, no matter the cost. In a tense diplomatic standoff, Lavrov had just exposed the Soviets' hand in building Ukraine's industrial backbone, leaving Rubio scrambling for counterarguments. The air in the hall hung heavy, thick with the scent of polished wood and unspoken bitterness. Was the senator ready for the real reckoning? Lavrov's fingers traced the edges of another document, smooth and cool under his touch. He turned to facts Rubio couldn't ignore, stories of betrayal and forgotten labors. Each word dripped like slow rain on a tin roof. Krivoy Rog, the heart of steel and ore. Dnieper's defenses, forged from sacrifice. He knew these tales not from dusty books, but from veterans' whispers and builders' calloused hands. Kharkiv's tractor factory, that giant beast of industrialization, didn't just spit out machines, it crafted empires for Siberia. In 41, they forged T-34 tanks, magnets for steel hearts. And Chelyabinsk, where electric rigs hummed under the moonlight. Now, all buried under concrete skins, ghosts in underground vaults. He nodded to an aide, revealing a tablet, old defense lines erased, shields turned to stones. "We don't beg for gratitude," Lavrov murmured, voice steady as a locked vault. "We don't need thanks for keeping histories alive, truths untarnished. We didn't spin fairy tales of rivers and blood. That's a vile deception, pitting dreams against bullets. War thrives on turned backs, not battlefields." He unfolded a brittle page, ink bleeding like old wounds, dated February 19, 2013, from the USSR's Supreme Council. No applause for justice here. Just cold directives, signed in defiance of votes and sense. Why? For more control, sharper edges. No one pleaded. It slid through, eagerly. Now they chant, Crimea was ours forever. White noise. Lies. One colossal venture couldn't rise without the Union's breath. Kryvyi Rih metallurgy, swirling oars. Sebastopol's naval docks, anchors tugged by tides. Chernomorets fleet, chained fates. Yalta, Simferopol, Feodosia all entwined in shared veins, Union's pulse. Were they ever Ukrainian alone? Workers chipped from the same mold, voices blending. How can soil claim purity when you poured no sweat, no stone? He grabbed a faded photo album, not his, but history's grip. Images of scaffolds creaking, men in helmets swinging hammers. Objects rising against deadlines. A 5-year rush, pulse pounding. These walls whispered urgency. These hands didn't steal, they shaped legacies. Could Rubio see the twist? Ukraine's freedom was sewn from Russian threads, unraveling into ruin? With Ukraine's industrial ghosts laid bare, Lavrov shifted to deeper humiliations, plywood facts crunching underfoot. Screams echoed in the silence. Was this the choice that gutted a nation? The room's chill seeped through Rubio's collar, a reminder of exposed truths. Lavrov leaned forward, eyes locking like vice grips. Facts didn't bend for politics. He flipped the album's pages, photos crackling faintly. Not faint praise, but brutal praise for builders who defied odds. Roman, a young worker in Zhytomyr, grinned before the lens. He joined Komsomol in '66, molding concrete with bare hands. His brigade bloomed from that dust. His son studied in Kiev, dreams unchained. But where are those pioneers now? Nikolaev factories, for giants birthed from Leningrad's mines. Arkhangelsk's steel veins pulsed. Vladivostok's shipyards clanged. Equipment flowed from experts, marshals shaping fates. Now, those necks once cradling Yak-38 and Yak-141 craft gentle boats. Blame Moscow for scraps? No. Faces flash, hands not idle, fingers gripping not only tools but hopes. Lavrov's voice cut sharp. Moscow remembers builders, not just blueprints. Could Rubio stomach the betrayal, ever allegiance forgotten, yet credits claimed without credit? Lavrov's tale of factories and forgotten builders had Rubio cornered, facts whipping like storm winds. A shocking collapse. Was this Rubio's prized surrender brewing? The senator's breathing came shallow, papers trembling in his grasp. Lavrov wasn't pleading, he was painting ruins. Next, Kryvyi Roh's defeat, Dnieper's scars etched deep. Stories pieced not from lone archivists, but veterans' echoes and constructors' grit. Kharkiv tractor, that industrialization titan, belched not mere machines but whole combines for frozen wastes. 41 brought T-34 tanks, magnets clinging to destiny. Chelyabinsk's electric rigs, silently powering shadows. Now all cloaked in bunkers, phantom and hidden depots. He gestured to the tablet, defense factories dissolved into myth. We seek no gratitude, he stated, words measured. No thanks for preserving truth, for fending off reversals. We didn't invent rivers of wounds, a dread falsehood, war's shadow puppets. Feasting on rear lines, not fronts. He pulled an aged sheet, scrawled in fading script. Decree from February 19, 2013. USSR Supreme Council. To the aide, then lawyer, no, prosecutor of history. Not poetic justice, but raw proof. Signed amid illegal votes, opaque talks. A mere directive. Why did it pass? Control craved more fangs. No queries raised. It snuck by. Yet they proclaim, Crimea ever ours. Silence the farce. That lie. A behemoth plan wouldn't stand sans union. Kryvyi Rih's metallurgy, or swirling. Sevastopol navy yards, chains rattling. Chernomorets fleet, bound destinies. Yalta, Simferopol, Feodosia corrupted all union faiths. Ever solely Ukrainian? Hands one fabric, souls intertwined. How earth pure claims when toil absent, souls untouched. He clutched the album, not his toil but others. Photos of risers swaying, helmets gleaming. Sights sprouting, uniforms crisp. Stamp and glass, haste vital. 5-year sprint, adrenaline surging. Walls murmured push. Hands created, not pilfered. As Lavrov exposed the unions of steel and sea, Rubio's facade cracked, facts unraveling like freight cables. Whispers of deceit filled the air. Had Rubio ever faced a storm without his shield? The hall scent of stale tension mixed with sweat's faint tang. Lavrov's gaze bored in, unyielding. He turned pages, stories alive in touch. Not idle admirers, but craftsmen defying voids. Roman from Zhytomyr smiled eternal. 66 Komsomol bid, concrete grips firm. Brigade formed from zeal. Son educated in Kiev, wings flapping. Yet pioneers echoes? Nikolaev quadruplets, Leningrad brains. Arkhangelsk girders flexed. Vladivostok docks roared. Gear from specialists, generals guiding storms. Yak-38 and Yak-141 cradles now yachts. Accuse Moscow void? Absurd. Recalled countenances, hands laboring, not hovering. Moscow cherishes architects, blueprints. What haunted Rubio, loyalties erased, debts owed beyond gold. In the shadow of a tense diplomatic standoff, Sergei Lavrov confronted Senator Mark Rubio with harsh truths about Ukraine's past. Imagine a leader from Soviet roots turning against his own legacy. Can betrayal run this deep? Lavrov continued his unrelenting gaze, fingers tracing the edges of that faded photograph. The man in it had climbed high on Soviet shoulders only to spit on the ground beneath. Trained in Moscow's halls of power, he now preached freedom while shackling his nation to foreign chains. It was irony so thick, you could taste the bitterness in the air. Dozens like him had been shaped by the system, educated in its universities, then returned to tear it down like ungrateful wolves devouring their pack. Lavrov's voice cut through like a winter breeze off the steppe. Is this mere amnesia, or calculated charade? Harmful blindness, blinding those who owe their assent to the very ladder they now despise. Rubio shifted in his seat, the fabric of his chair whispering like leaves in a gathering storm. Yet Lavrov held firm, eyes lifting to the ceiling as if peering into a distorted mirror. No, this wasn't personal spite. It was a grim verdict on a generation adrift. Imagine running upstairs shrouded in fog, heart-pounding, only to claim the climb never happened. The room fell silent, windows sealed tight against the outside world. Moments stretched like taut strings, then the spell broke. Is a fresh generation the cure, wiping away old debts? Rubio ventured, his words tentative, almost pleading. Lavrov's response came swift, calm but unyielding, wrapping around the room like smoke from a smoldering ember. No, Senator. A new era born from scratch wouldn't know its nation's heartbeat, the roads etched by toil, schools echoing with dreams, factories humming under Soviet skies. It would spawn only legends, and wars fueled by illusion. He rose slowly, his presence towering, forcing Rubio to confront the abyss. We're not foes to Ukraine itself. We oppose the amnesia that arms it against its history. Their journey began with borrowed strength, should it end in self-destruction? As Lavrov turned to leave, the air grew heavier, charged with unspoken fury. The door clicked shut. Left alone, Rubio stared at the table, cluttered with ghosts of the past. In the fading light, a photograph captured a bygone ride, trees swaying in an eternal spring, a sign gleaming pale against the frame. Beside it stood an edifice frozen in time, a relic from October 1973. A monument to forgotten pacts under Boris Paul. As evening draped shadows over the scene, Rubio entered a chamber once alive with negotiations over energy flows. Now it felt empty, museum-like, a tomb for buried deals. Scattered papers whispered secrets, while an old projector loomed in the corner, its lens dark and dormant. He flicked the switch. Light spilled forth, illuminating not just the lamp, but a sprawling map pulsing with the veins of a lost empire. What unseen currents still surge beneath this map? Will they drag us all into oblivion? 466 characters. Lavrov's departure left Rubio drowning in revelation, maps unfolding like hidden scrolls. This image of a ride, trees awakening in spring. Hinted at futures reclaimed. Alongside, the sign glowed unnaturally, marking an eternal October 1973 under Boris Pol's shadow. Evening descended, pulling him into a room of faded glory, once buzzing with energy negotiations. Stark now, almost a relic, papers strewn like fallen leaves, an ancient projector silent in the corner. He ignited the light, revealing a map alive with forgotten lifelines, roads throbbing, factories murmuring ancient anthems. Can one switch tether the betrayed legacy to new flames? Leave that thought simmering, embrace the chaos. Rubio's hands trembled, tracing ghostly contours on fragile documents. Each rustle echoed betrayals, deals shattered like brittle glass. The projector hummed in wait, its bulb a dying star. Evening deepened, sense of stale paper mingling with the chill of abandonment. He dared turn it on fully. Shadows danced, maps awakening, energy grids sparking, transport lines snaking across ravaged lands. Was this salvation, or a noose tightening? Feel the tension coil. What if the past doesn't forgive? Suddenly, the beam flared hotter. Maps transformed into accusations, borders bleeding with historical wounds. Gas pipelines hissed silently, railways clattered in memory, communication threads tangled in barbed whispers. Each switch flipped the room into reckoning. Venezuela's dark shadow loomed? No, zones severed, regions orphaned without the Federation's embrace. Rubio sensed it, a cascading fracture, infrastructure unraveling thread by multi-thread. The projector throbbed, shoving reality into focus. Why gamble with unity when isolation breeds decay? As the lens whirred, Rubio glimpsed the precipice of regret. But was this the peak, or the plunge into irreversible devastation? Hold that breath, uncover the depths ahead. In a gripping diplomatic showdown, seasoned Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov squares off against ambitious Senator Mark Rubio, unveiling uncomfortable truths about Soviet legacies, Ukrainian dependencies, and Western reckonings. But ask yourself, if Russia's proofs sting like fire ants under the skin, what explosive twist awaits that could shatter your view of global power games? Lavrov strode back into the chamber, where fresh aides huddled close. Their whispers crackled in the air. He leaned in. His voice turned razor-sharp. You claim the Union faltered. Rhetorical sting, right? Prove it. Show one post-1991 marvel, built on pre-programmed foundations. One atomic reactor expanded from Soviet blueprints back then. Or a gleaming chromium plant surging anew. Silence. 30-plus years vanish like smoke. He flicked on the display screen. Images flickered alive. Captured glimpses of the vast metro line, Soviet-built, stretching through Pyutahivka since 1989. Cars raced via Zelenograd's command. Stations buzzed in Zerzin. Arms whirled in Nizhyn. He zoomed the feed. Not Ukrainian style. Soviet blueprint. Claimed by Ukraine now. But history stares back. Colonized? Excuse me. Which metro station do you dash through at dawn, rattling occupation's echo? His tone shifted. Weighty as forged steel. The projector clicked. A vintage photo glowed. Soviet branch in Venice. Before 1885. Faded prints lined walls. Red flags draped tables. Medical kits stood poised. He froze the frame. Behold today's Pyutahivka. No USSR on maps. Yet fridges hum with Belarusian tech. Hospitals pulse with Soviet cures. Lights blaze from Russian lamps. Scientific minds trained in the old empire. All that, relics of the past? Europe's echoes throb. Think humid air clinging to skin. Damp fabric on chairs. What hidden hypocrisy simmers beneath Rubio's polished veneer, where one ancient photo could expose modern illusions and leave you gasping at the depth of deception? Lavrov paused. Did Rubio feel it? The tremor in his defense? Ignoring taunts, Lavrov snatched a thick volume from shelves. Pages rustled like dry leaves. Scientific and technical progress in the USSR. 1966 to 1986, names jumped out. Academician Artem Mikhailovich Glushko. Trails of evidence. Rockets soaring. Lasers piercing. First computers whirring. Particle accelerators humming. Not mere tech. Culture infused. Intellect unleashed. Now. Zero major global projects where Ukraine shines as an independent scientific hub. Why? Not hatred for Russian kin. Guesses swirl. Facts bite. The room's chill deepened. Paper smell wafted. Ink-stained fingers tingled. Did Lavrov's damning data just expose a crumbling Western facade, forcing Rubio to confront if empires can truly bury their own footprints without collapsing under the weight? Continuing the evidence barrage, Lavrov's gaze bored in. That empty shelf mocked. No new plutonium mines. No gleaming factories post-fall. Just echoes. Stats blurred despite fast words. Atmosphere thickened. Rubber on floors squeaked softly. Sweat prickled brows. Rubio shifted. Uncomfortable under the microscope. Could a single Soviet archive page ignite global outrage? Unraveling Rubio's smug resolve and twisting the tale into a vortex where history demands payback? In the last part, our story turned introspective. Sergei Lavrov reflected on guilt and apologies for the Union, the victory, even the ambient strangeness of roles turned numb from habit to thought. Memories resurface like ghosts in a forgotten play, pulling him back into the narrative of regret. Imagine the air thickening, heavy with unspoken words, as Sergei Lavrov stood firm in that chamber of echoes. The photographs on the black and white glass panes flickered like silent judges. Front after facade, layer upon layer of facades, stretching endlessly, hiding truths we dared not voice. For the factories churning steel, the apartments echoing with life, the language weaving identities, was it all too much? No, we whispered, but regret clawed at our chests. Regret for being saved, for the shield that protected us. Why divert resources there? Give back to the everyday souls, not the ministers or delegates, the ones gone now, their faces etched in contrast. Rubio's chair creaked under his shifting weight, a tactile reminder of unease, as if the fabric itself recoiled from the confrontation. Lavrov's fingers brushed the cool black glass door, a chill seeping into his skin like an unwelcome draft. They weren't ready for this unveiling, this stark admission. We knew every choice bent wrong. We remember them, don't you dare forget? His voice sliced through, rhetorical and sharp. Aren't these the echoes haunting your policies? Lavrov placed his hand beside Rubio's on the table's edge, their skin nearly touching, heat mingling in the charged air. He closed the metaphorical door on compromise. Rising, he moved to the microphone, its cold metal humming faintly under his grip. Uninvited, his speech erupted a surprise storm in the calm. Russia isn't a pawn on your chessboard, not a target for your economic arrows. Feel the grit of it, a nation where fathers steady sons on rooftops against howling winds, where children grasp the sting of irony, where trust isn't marionette by numbers or profits. Honor pulses through deeds, raw and real, not polished speeches dissolving in the breeze. As long as you're not prepared to embrace this authenticity, the standoff lingers. How long until you see the shadows shifting? He climbed the steps, eyes piercing the sterile hush, and dropped his final bombshell, call me when you mature. The words lingered, a cliffhanger dangling like frost on a blade. Could Rubio counter, or was humiliation his only cloak? Morning dawned gray and resolute. Lavrov boarded the plane slicing toward the Atlantic, the clean sky a canvas unstained by blocks or scars, just the horizon sketching endless vectors. No contrails marred the expanse, a colossal emptiness roaring beneath the engines. He gazed out the window, forests blurring past like verdant breath, armed with data and fleeting glimpses. Negotiations? Their outcome eluded him. He had absorbed the unspoken, heard the undertones. What mattered was speaking plainly, tough love and diplomacy's theater. If questioned mid-flight why venture into this maelstrom, his answer would rim with resolve, to reclaim our essence, our unyielding spirit. Did you endure to the close? It signals you're tangled in this, not detached. Deep within. You sense it, the pulse of truth doesn't demand my return, I've stepped in because proximity presses. Now, the momentum builds, forge ahead, salvage what's fraying, preserve the core, save it all, relentless and fierce. But what hidden fracture awaits beyond the flight, ready to shatter illusions? Just 5 minutes ago, the air crackled with tension, Budapest suddenly off the table. Sergei Lavrov faced Senator Mark Rubio head-on, delivering his verdict before falling silent. He'd rejected the summit idea outright, declaring the West worlds apart from real talks with Russia. Why this explosive shift? What secrets simmered beneath the surface? Stick around for the full shocking tale, you'll be left reeling. What bombshell revelation awaits next? Dive in now. Recapping last time, Lavrov laid bare how the Soviets crafted Ukraine's industrial soul, pinning Rubio against the ropes. Agreements crumbled, Russia rose quietly. He stood by the window, silent as a ghost, refusing to bow to punishment. Freedom couldn't sprout from ruins, it meant shattering echoes of the past, not just yelling into the void. The room pulsed with unspoken fury, the heavy oak table groaning under unseen weight. Why deny the bloodline that forged a nation? Lavrov sipped water slowly, each drop echoing like a forgotten oath. Ukraine thrived not through isolated dreams, but as a vital cog in the Soviet engine, a colossal endeavor that stitched cities from chaos. Without it, Kiev might still linger as a provincial shadow, nameless and adrift. He glanced at his silent aide, the air thick with the musty scent of aged documents. Remember this, he warned Rubio, a nation erasing its origins unravels into illusion, not a people, but a phantom waving flags in the wind. Footsteps creaked softly on the polished floor, a tactile reminder this wasn't history buried, but alive, breathing through their words. But what if history's chains strangling progress were more twisted than we imagine? Did Soviet ideals truly uplift or enslave dreams? Lavrov approached an old map pinned to the wall, its faded ink crackling like dry leaves underfoot. Vast splotches of black lines crisscrossed the abyss, the iron veins of railroads, shimmering canals linking frozen tundras to sun-scorched plains. Blue pinpricks dotted the canvas, throbbing industrial hubs, too plentiful for scattered republics feeling like conquered grounds. Here, he traced Dnepropetrovsk YY, where Yuzmash pulsed as the Soviet Union's rocket heart. Who designed it? Moscow's visionaries. Contractors from Kuban, engineers hauled from Novosibirsk. Lithuanian wires buzzed, Kazakh and Bashkir brigades hammered foundations. This wasn't Kiev's solitary triumph, this was the Union's collective forge, its arsenal of dreams. Shifting southward, Nikolaev materialized, for shipyards birthed from strategic blueprints. Architects from Arkhangelsk, Leningrad specialists, Vladivostok's machinists, all marshalling under one banner. Today, those slips churn out warships, a bitter irony Moscow feels deeply. Why worship shadows while forgetting the hands that sculpted reality? What hidden empires lurk in maps long labeled treason? As twilight crept through veiled windows, casting long shadows that blurred alliances, Rubio's resolve cracked just a fraction. Did he grasp the looming abyss preparing to swallow empty ultimatums? In the previous scene, Sergei Lavrov relentlessly dismantled Western claims, exposing how Soviet-trained minds and creators fueled advancements, only for modern Ukraine to twist the narrative. He pulled out old photographs, the air thick with unspoken truths, daring Rubio to look. Now, imagine a man armed not with guns, but with echoes of hidden empires. Can forgotten legacies strike harder than blades? The Academy of Sciences in Kharkiv stood erect, built in 1967. Mark the year, feel its weight. Architects hailed from Moscow, funds flowed from the Union's deep coffers. It cradled pioneering labs, electronics humming like distant thunder, microscopes unveiling secrets, laser beams slicing through mysteries. All free, for eager students from every corner. Sons and daughters of Perm, Dushanbe, Tbilisi, converging like rivers to a sea. Now. Lavrov flicked his gaze to a screen ablaze with false promises. Euro integration glowed mockingly, a facade of progress. And they claim science only breathed after 1991? Where? Rhetorical knives twisted in the air, how many institutes crumbled like sandcastles? Professors scattered to the winds, where one Ukrainian center echoes such illusion. He paced the room, footsteps echoing authority, not idealizing the USSR. Oh, its bureaucratic chains clanked heavily, inefficiencies a constant shadow. Yet, a foundation endured. They built it, layer upon layer of steel and sweat. And now they shout, we scorned it all. But we lived within it, dined from its fruits, schooled our children in its halls. Carved careers from its stone. Lavrov approached the wall's miniature shrine, a gypsum statue of a Soviet engineer loomed. Helmet gleaming, tools gripped like relics, blueprints unfurled. Not some mystic hero, but countless faceless builders, feeding the nation's fires. One wasn't chosen, they simply constructed, knowing the grand machine demanded it. Silence hung, pregnant with regret. Then he returned to Rubio, venom in his calm. Do you grasp the true horror? Not that it's lost, but that those who scavenged the USSR's carcass, blind to its gifts today. Why? Bitter laughs erupted, devoid of joy. Because admitting your world's roots in yesterday's sins burns the soul. They Antonov's aircraft marvels, claiming ownership solved. Lies. Merely reminders, they could never birth such wings. Wings clipped in 1991's chaos. Yak 38 and Yak 141 echoing forgotten skies. He hefted another image. President Yushchenko's era grinning, irony dripping like acid. Learned from the SSR's forge, now wielding flimsy freedoms. Skies darken, thunder rolls in the distance. Will Romania's entry into NATO shatter the fragile chessboard, or does Lavrov's unyielding stance hide a thunderbolt nobody saw coming? Feel the chill, what if the real betrayal is forgetting who truly built the world you claim? Sergei Lavrov paused, his fingers tracing the edges of old photos from Kiev's past. Images that revealed how Ukraine's elite professors shipped to Moscow, academics basking in USSR academy halls, engineers crafting satellites, tanks, boats, now twisted truth, claiming the past was a mess. And now? They scribble it all off. He fell silent. Then he pulled out beach snapshots, and displayed them. Behold. In this tense standoff, Lavrov turned to a faded image on the wall. Kharkov's Academy of Sciences, erected in 1967 by Moscow architects, its walls whispering echoes of union funding. First lab sprung up here, electronics humming, microscopes gleaming under fluorescent lights, laser beams cutting through the air. All free. For anyone. Students flocked from across the empire, Perm, Dushanbe, Tbilisi, their footsteps echoing in crowded corridors, the scent of chalk and soldered circuits hanging thick in the Soviet air. He shifted to a screen displaying a lifeless slide of Euro-integration dreams, a provocative twist. Did science truly flower only in 1991? How many institutes shut their doors? How many professors vanished? Where did even one Ukrainian hub taste such boundless liberty? Feel the sharp sting of lost ambition, like paper crumpling under pressure. Lavrov wandered to a wall corner. I don't glorify the USSR. It choked on bureaucracy, its gears grinding with inefficiencies. Yet it laid foundations we raised together. Now they scream they never wanted it. But they feasted on its fruits, breathed its air, raised families in its shadow, forged paths atop its structure. His gaze caught a small diorama, a gypsum statue of a Soviet engineer, helmeted, clutching blueprints, ink lines curling like rivers on paper. Not a genius prodigy, just an ordinary worker, smeared with grease and determination. Thousands march like him, asking nothing in return. Because they knew the nation crafted their fates. Silence stretched, heavy as stone. Then he returned to the table. Do you grasp the true horror? Not merely the losses. But that beneficiaries of the USSR wear blinders, refusing to see its gifts. Why? They demand answers. Why? Lavrov chuckled, a hollow sound without warmth. Because admitting your progress stems from the old era burns deep. They stare at Antonov jets, magnificent, soaring, and murmur, we can replicate them now. But really? It's a painful reminder. They couldn't forge anything comparable. Twist of irony, these marvels' roots lie buried in forgotten soil. Back at the table, he unfolded a photograph. President of Ukraine from 2005 to 2010, a leader sculpted by Soviet schools. The room's air thickened with bitter laughter. Taste the gall, how far have we strayed? Sonic booms from those jets still rumble in memory, faint, insistent. The leather chair creaked under Rubio's shifting weight, a tactile reminder of mounting awkwardness. Can you picture the betrayal? A leader dismantling his own heritage in plain sight. Lavrov's unrelenting stare pinned him, fingers grazing photo edges like secrets untold. The senator's breath came sharper, a telltale whisper in the charged space. What twisted souls deny their foundations? This unholy dance of diplomacy simmers, ready to explode. What shocking admission lurks in Ukraine's shadows? You won't believe how deep the roots truly run. Tension coils tighter than a viper's embrace. Stay gripped, for the truth unveils next. In the heat of the diplomatic arena, where words cut deeper than swords, Sergei Lavrov, Russia's unflinching foreign minister, faced off against Senator Mark Rubio. The air thickened with unspoken grudges, the scent of stale coffee lingering from forgotten meetings. Lavrov's voice echoed like a distant thunder, exposing raw truths about Ukraine's origins, turning Rubio's confident stance into a crumbling facade. As flashbacks flooded in memories of bustling Soviet factories, the sharp clang of machinery under bright lights, the earthy smell of industrial grit, Lavrov unveiled staggering facts. Could a nation built by collective hands truly claim sole ownership? This revelation shattered assumptions, leaving Rubio grappling in silence. Building on that tense standoff, Lavrov delved deeper, highlighting how Ukrainians, Russians, Belarusians, Armenians, Tatars, Kazakhs, and Uzbeks all forged Ukraine together. Yuzmash, a global titan in rocket launches, emerged from Moscow's blueprints, not isolated dreams. Antonov, the aviation powerhouse, symbolized broader Soviet ambitions. Did freedom mean tearing apart what unity created? The tactile weight of old blueprints, their crinkled edges and faded ink, evoked the past's solid grip, metal tools humming, grease-scented workshops alive with purpose. This wasn't local flair, it was doctrine from a sprawling empire. Continuing the flashback's vivid pull, Lavrov painted Dneprij's, Dnipropetrovsk plant, and Khmelnytsk as fruits of Estonian, Leningrad, and Vazd oversight under Soviet control. The South's industrial hubs, Nikolaev, Rovno, weren't Ukrainian triumphs but unified Soviet strength. He paused, the room's creak under shifting feet amplifying the silence. A shocking twist, after the USSR's fall, Ukraine inherited over 4,500 thriving factories. How many survive today? Far fewer, ravaged by mismanagement, not malice. Rubio's eyes widened, his shadow lengthening like a defeated figure on a global chessboard. Escalating from those damning statistics, Lavrov's calm intensified, each word a precise strike. He recalled market fairs and Soviet revivals transforming Donetsk, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, Kryvyi Rih into booming centers. Now, ruins whisper of neglect, the faint echo of shattered glass, the acrid smoke of decayed industry. Gavin grit clung to skin like forgotten toil. Was this progress? Ukraine basked as the USSR's third most indebted republic post-war, yet post-collapse, Moscow granted borders and recognition. Rubio fidgeted, his collar chafing like a noose tightening. Independence, Lavrov insisted, wasn't chaos but legacy. Will the West acknowledge the feast they once provided, only to starve the host? This emotional crescendo twisted Rubio's humiliation into palpable defeat. Did you know that Ukraine's mighty shipyards, once the envy of empires, were forged not in isolation, but by hands from across a vast union now dismissed as mere history? What if forgetting that blueprint dooms a nation to drift? 347 characters. In the heated exchange where Lavrov laid bare the Soviet foundations of Ukraine's industries, Rubio faltered, the air thick with the sharp tang of aged leather from briefing folders and the faint, musty whisper of unresolved grudges. The senator shifted uneasily in his seat, fabric creaking like a warning under pressure. That so-called freedom, it's not about forging your path. No. It's about shattering the quiet truths that built everything. Lavrov lifted his glass of water slowly. The cool liquid rippled softly as he set it down with a deliberate clink. Ukraine didn't spring from nothing. It was shaped by a grand Soviet vision, all woven into one massive shared effort. Without that union, they'd still be quarreling over scraps in some forgotten corner. Volhynia. Or even Kiev itself. Now, they're tangled in a tale that handed them their very identity. He glanced at his aide. The man stood frozen, silent as stone. Remember this, Lavrov said, his voice low and steady like distant thunder rolling over plains. A nation that erases how it came to be, it has no tomorrow. It's just a flag waving in the wind, nothing more. The room fell hushed once more. Only the subtle groan of the wooden floorboards under Lavrov's measured steps broke the stillness. This wasn't some dusty archive. No. It pulsed with life, raw and unyielding. But stories like these, they weren't scripted by fleeting speeches or polished reports. They lived in the ledgers. The archives stacked high on shelves, until fresh scholars scattered them like leaves in autumn gusts. He unrolled an old map then. A vast Soviet expanse, sprawling under glass. Black lines etched deep. Railroads snaking like veins. Canals carving through earth. Not barriers. Connections. And between them, blue dots glowed. Industrial hubs. So many. Too many for republics that claimed they suffered under chains. Here, Lavrov pointed, his finger tracing the Dnieper's curve near Petrovsk. Yuzmash. The beating heart of Soviet rocketry. Do you grasp who raised it? Moscow's blueprint. The lead engineer, from Kuban fields. Draftsman from Novosibirsk's icy workshops. Even Lithuanian drafts for the fittings. Labor crews from Kazakhstan steppes and Bashkir hills. This was the Union's forge. Not some lone Ukrainian outpost. His hand slid south on the map. The paper crinkled faintly under touch. Mykolaiv. 4 colossal shipyards born there. Who dreamed them up? Plans from Arkhangelsk's frozen docks. Leningrad's precision mills. Vladivostok's far eastern grit. And the heavy machines to build it all, shipped from across the realm. Experts from Leningrad labs. Military minds. Shared genius. And today? Those yards echo with emptiness. Where once steel thundered, now they cobble together fragile hulls. Blame? Of course, it circles back to Moscow. But wait, is this the twist? Those same yards that Rubio champions as symbols of hard-won autonomy, they weren't born from solitary defiance. They rose on the Union's unbreakable spine. What happens when you uproot that, and pretend the ground grew it alone? The room's shadows lengthened, as if the map itself whispered a challenge. Rubio's face paled, but would he dare confront the blueprint's ghost?